Julia Blake brings together 11 business experts to help other business owners survive the UK lockdown. George Swift, Claire Bridges, Julia Blake, NICKI KINTON, Joe Medhurst, Amanda Dowds, Andy Steer, Tori Wag, Ollie Church, Sarah Sagster, Carolyn Varlan. And here's your host, Julia Blake.
Okay, and welcome everybody to today's Stronger Together webinar. And my goodness, what a time we're in at the moment. And I want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us. We have a tremendous panel of experts who are all going to share 3 top tips to help us survive and hopefully thrive as business owners. But just to start and say, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because so much right now is outside of our control. Who would ever have thought we would be in this position? It's just absolutely unprecedented. There are no words. But there is one thing that we still will have an element of influence over, and that is our businesses. And this month I've been running my business for 10 years and I am jolly well going to make sure that I am running it for the 11th. So I decided that actually I probably needed a bit of help, and I'm really lucky. I've got this amazing group of people around me, either clients or suppliers or my network, and I am truly blessed to have them around me and supporting me. And I wanted to bring them together. They're part of my inner circle, and I wanted to bring them together to help you guys, because we all need to think about different ways to run our businesses now. And the beautiful thing that we do have as business owners is the agility to change the course of direction that our business is going fairly quickly. You know, big organizations are like oil tankers. They take 3 miles to change direction. We, as business owners of small businesses, have this beautiful ability to change course quite quickly, but we need to make sure that we're changing course in the right direction. And that's why I've asked all these other wonderful individuals and experts to join me today. So without further ado, I want to let you know what's happening in today's webinar. I'm going to introduce each of the panel, each of the experts, and then each of those experts is going to have a few minutes to share with us their take on the situation and 3 top tips to help us survive and hopefully thrive through this time, because the more businesses that survive, the better for all of us. Clearly, we're talking about people's livelihoods here. Then we're going to take some questions from you guys, and thank you for the people that have already sent those questions in. And we are then going to wrap up and go back to the panelists, and they're going to just have a minute just to sum up what their big takeaway from this is. Now, as follow-up, I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody. It's like a resources pack. I'm going to be putting links to the panelists, and all of the panelists are giving away something as well, predominantly their time. They want to help you as much as I do. So that will be coming out in the next couple of days. Okay, so just a bit of housekeeping. This is the first time I've run a webinar on Zoom, so I'm hoping you can all see me. I've got people out there letting me know if there's a problem, but I have been advised to ask you all to go onto Speaker View so that actually you see what you're meant to see. So hopefully we can all do that, and let me know if there are any questions or if anybody is having any issues. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the panel. First up, we've got George Swift, who runs Bigger, Brighter, Bolder. Now, he's also been in business for 10 years this month. Him and Tracy Miller set up Bigger, Brighter, Bolder. So they're in the same position as I am. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary by doing these things for you guys. So George is a personal performance specialist, and he provides mindset and attitude coaching to business owners. He's helped over 400 businesses, predominantly our business owners, CEOs and execs. So he can really help us understand understand why we are all acting and reacting as we are and make sense of that for us. Then we've got Jo Medhurst, who is a wellbeing therapist, and she specialises in nutrition. We need to keep ourselves in as tip-top position, health as possible to be able to fight this, and for our families to have that immune system to fight it as well. So she's going to be sharing some top tips for us to take control of our health. Then we've got Caroline Varlin, who runs Gap HR. She's an HR expert, massively in demand, as you can imagine right now, with all these business owners really being concerned about their staff and how to look after their staff. So we have people on this webinar who have staff and those who don't. So Caroline is going to help us understand what we need to do as business owners who have employees that we want to take care of. Then we have NICKI KINTON. NICKI runs Confident Cash Flow. I'm stuttering over my words, excuse me. So NICKI is a credit management expert, and she's going to help us really shore up what we've got, how to make sure we can get paid for the invoices that have already gone out to people, to businesses, make sure that we have a positive cash flow, and to make sure that our terms and conditions are robust moving forward. And then we have Tori Wag. She runs Panthera Accounting, and they are an accounting specialist who help small businesses. They specialise in zero, and she really helps businesses understand their numbers. Again, somebody massively in demand at the moment, helping her clients. She's running a webinar every week, and she's going to help us understand what this help is that's coming out from the government, all about the grants and all of those bits and pieces that are changing every day. Then we've got the fantastic Andy Steer from Vividly Simple. He is an IT expert, and he runs a company that helps businesses have robust IT in place and protects them from malware. Absolutely vital with us all doing this home working. Myself, I'm going to be coming in as processes and systems experts, and more than ever we need these processes and systems to be robust and really support our business. If we get ill, we need to make sure that our businesses are carrying on running themselves as much as we can, and that they really shore up the position. So I'll be spending some time on that. Then we've got the fantastic Claire Bridges from Now Go Create. Claire is a creativity guru. What we need right now is creativity. I don't necessarily mean in content. I mean, we need to think creatively. We need to think outside the box. Claire and her team have trained over 15,000 people around the world to be more creative. And we're really, really honoured to have Claire here today. And she's going to share some practical tools and techniques to help us all think creatively about how we can get through our current situation and adapt our business. Then we've got Amanda Downs. Amanda is known to many of you. She is a sales expert. She works with top corporations, and she also works on the smaller business area as well. And she will help us understand why it's important to have a value proposition that reflects where our clients are right now. We need to meet their needs. Then we have fantastic Sarah Sangster. She's a digital marketing expert. What she doesn't know about digital marketing, you just don't need to bother knowing. She is just awesome. I can't explain enough. Words don't explain enough. She is going to help us understand what systems there are out there that we can use right now. She will give a sanity check on platforms and really help business owners who need to change the way they deliver their products. Maybe they need to go more online. She can help us with that. And then we're wrapping up. We're really, really, really pleased to have Ollie Church here. Ollie is a former officer in the British Army. He was in Afghanistan, and through his own physical and mental journey dealing with PTSD, has become an emotional coach. He and his colleagues have started up a company called the Ethos Partnership, and they help corporations understand mental fitness and resilience. And Ollie will be sharing some tips for us to all look after our own mental health and our mental health of the people around us. So that's the panel. What an awesome team we do have. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to George Swift, who is going to share his perspective and some tips to keep going. So thank you, George.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. Thanks for being here. Welcome to everybody who's listening. I think it's good, actually, that I'm going straight out the gate, straight up front, because we've been running success groups now for 10 years, 8 years, BBB for 10 years, just like Julia, having our anniversary at home, locked in isolation. And we've got, like 80 plus members right now, all business owners. And the message that I've been putting out to these guys right from the get-go is about fear and about understanding fear. And I had a long history of dealing with people in fear-based scenarios and situations in my past, and then working with business owners for the last 8 years. A big part is looking at our emotional conditioning, looking at our emotional state, and looking at how if we can't moderate our own emotional responses, then we're not going to be performing at our absolute best. And right now, given what we're going through as business owners, we have to be 100% operating at the best we possibly can. So I want to get stuck in and talk about fear. And number one, if you are feeling fear in this current time, you are a fully functioning human being. You wouldn't be normal if you weren't having a degree of worry, anxiety, or fears, and these things will tend to come in waves. So you might find that you'll find a relative amount of calm and peace, and then something will trigger you, something will happen, we'll go back into that place of fear and stuff. The bottom line is really simple. During this current time, my message to all my business owners is, number one, limit any damage that might happen during this period to your business. Number two, you want to maximize on any opportunities that are available to you out there right now. They might be thinner on the ground than normal, but they're still there, and we need to be out there still fighting for those. And number three, we've got to get ready, right? I mean, you know, I felt it myself. I see business owners. It's like, you know what, I'll just go to bed and I'll wait this thing out. You know, the truth of the matter is we've got to be ready when this thing passes, which it will. We don't know when exactly. There'll be an opportunity, obviously, that arises there, and we want to be on that start line absolutely ready to smash it. So number one, the negative aspects of having fear. So whilst it's the most normal thing right now for you to be in fear and to have trepidations and anxieties, the truth is it's killing your personal performance. So the fear response is the fight, flight, or freeze response. So flight, fight, or freeze. Try and say that one. Response. And none of those are going to serve us right now in our business. We want to be creative. We've got some great panelists here. We've got some awesome content coming up. If you're in a fear state of mind, you literally will not be able to function clear enough in order to be able to apply the great stuff that we've got coming up for you right now. So I want you to come back to that peace of calm as often as possible. And I know it can sometimes seem crazy, but you can get yourself back to that place of calm. And I often refer to it like the T in tennis. You know, if you watch tennis, obviously all cancelled, but if you see tennis, you know, they always come back to the tee, because when you're at that tee, you can cover the whole court. When we're running around chasing and reacting to the environment and chasing and reacting to news and anxieties and fears and everything else, we're not covering our bases. So we want to keep coming back to that tee and that place of calm and that place of peace. And we want to find our way back to that as much as possible. So number one, I want you to be mindful of where you're at. So, you know, self-awareness is absolutely key in personal performance, knowing how I'm behaving, how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and how that's affecting what I'm actually doing, and therefore obviously the results I'm coming back. Number two, you want to be constantly mindful that fear is not going to work, right? Your brain is going to keep saying, let's panic, this is going to solve our problems. You've got to be mindful the whole time of saying, right, this is not going to work, this is not going to work, and keep repeating that mantra to yourself, like almost every second of every day when that fear starts to bubble up. And number three, you want to have a reset in place. So if you're into meditation, mindfulness, yoga, walking the dog, watching Netflix comedies, having a laugh, having a drink, you've got to give yourself these resets. So the things that used to work for you before, we typically dump them out the window when we go into sort of like blind fear. We want to bring those things back into place. So most of us, we have our go-tos, those things that make us feel calm, relaxed, things that make us laugh. Go back to those things and make sure that you're bringing those in, almost like a prescription, you know, whether it's daily or certainly whenever you need to, with fear. And really my last point I wanted to say here was the importance of having the right community around you. So, you know, Bigger, Bright, Bold and Success Groups, I already said we've got like 80 business owners plus in there, from startups all the way through to like £10 million businesses. And it's about making sure that you are part of the right community. Now, the communities are popping up all over Facebook, LinkedIn, everything else. You know, think about deer, and if you go to a park and one deer startles and runs, it's meant to evolutionarily trigger all those deer and the whole lot run, right? Without really thinking, why are we running, right? I'm running, why are you running? I'm running because they're running. Why are they running? Well, no one knows why they're running, right? The first one got startled and ran. So if you're in a community where panic is running rife, or fear mongering, or people saying, oh, it's all crap, it's all shit, we're all going to hell, that is not a positive environment to be around right now. You want to be in environments that make you, that inspire you, that motivate you, that challenge your aspirations right now, challenge maybe how you're thinking, challenge the perceptions maybe of the market out there, and be surrounded by people that just make it easier for you to perform at your best and operate your best. So really, during these times right now, you'll be really mindful of who your friends are, inverted commas, online and offline. But be really mindful of those people around you and be mindful of the influence that they're having on you. Are they constructively adding to your experience right now and helping you to perform at your best and think at your best and most clearly, or do they have their own kind of underhand agenda, not mean agenda, but where they want you to buy into their fear, their panic, their misery? And these are values we've stood for 8 years, and they're values that are never more important right now. Last thing I want to say really quickly, Chilean miners is a story that someone brought up in our club recently. And what it was is that at any point with the Chilean miners, there was always a group of people that were really positive and on it and were functioning highly. And there was a group of people that were maybe losing it, right? But it wasn't always the same people. And during those times down there, what they found was that the ones that were strong supported the ones that were having vulnerable moments, but the ones that were vulnerable would have their own strong moments and they would support the ones that were weak. So whilst I'm saying get yourself into these communities to support you, also be the supporter to other people, because they will then be there for you when you need them back for yourself. I wasn't timing, Julia. I don't know what the time was, roughly.
You ran over. No surprise there. Thank you, George. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And absolutely key then to keeping ourselves in the right place as best we can mentally is to keep our physical bodies as well as they possibly can be. And Jo is now going to share some tips to help us do that.
Thanks, Julia. So obviously my first tip's not going to be a very big surprise. It's boosting your immune system. That's really going to be useful and very reassuring for a lot of people at the minute to be able to do that. So some of the best proven ways to do this, first one is garlic. It's really simple. Loads of people have got this at home. It contains selenium. It's an antiviral. It helps your T cells. It increases detoxing liver enzyme. It lowers your cholesterol and your blood pressure. So, and most of you will have it at home. So just add that to as much food as possible. Really, really simple, easy way to boost your immune system. And it has the added bonus of making you very conscious about breathing on people right now. So it's a really good thing to have during a pandemic. I'd really recommend that. So another useful one that's good right now as well as I'd recommend is echinacea. This is really useful for really strengthening your immune system, again proven with research and everything. And this one activates white blood cells, stimulates cellular regeneration, also protects non-infected cells against viruses. So this is a particularly good one for right now to just give you that bit more of reassurance. You can get this in a herbal tea or throat spray. They also do cough drops and things like that. It's quite readily available. Another thing that you can add to your diet that's just good for boosting the immune system as well. Mushrooms, again, really simple one that we would have around the house. So that's got a lot of vitamin D and copper in it. Shiitake and maitake mushrooms are the best ones, but they're all good. So just adding some more of that into the diet. Another very simple way for just boosting your immune system. So it's quite useful as well to have kind of your list of vitamins and minerals that are responsible for giving your immune system its strength and just keeping it running as well as possible. So the main ones for that would be vitamin A, you get that in carrots. Vitamin C, get that in your fruit and veg, things like broccoli, peas, berries, citrus, that kind of thing. Vitamin D, get from the sunshine, obviously, but also eggs and mushrooms, really good for that. Selenium, you get that in tuna, Brazil nuts, garlic, zinc, shellfish, legumes, copper, sunflower seeds, sulfur in eggs, things like that. That is not an exhaustive list of sources. Obviously, I realised I just ran through that quite quickly. I actually did a Facebook post on this morning. So if anybody wants more details on the sources of that, just head over to my page and I've got a list there, so that's quite useful. But it might be a good idea, and it might be easier for people at the minute if they're struggling to think about a lot of things, just to take a multivitamin mineral with all of these in for a month, and that'll just really make sure you haven't got any mineral deficiencies or vitamin deficiencies that might be impacting your immune system. And it's really crucial when you're taking a supplement like that it's from food source. You really need that for good absorption, and you can get these online or in health food shops if they're open. So another thing that's really important for your immune system as well is reducing your stress and getting outside, really. It's one of the best things you can do to just make sure your immune system's healthy. So it's really important to build that in and make sure you're looking at that. So I know that there's going to be a bit more chat with Ollie later about reducing stress and mental health, but looking at things like exercise, my next tip would really be just remembering how important it is to have routine and regular exercise is really, really crucial. So I don't know if everyone's seen the film I Am Legend. Remember the film Will Smith, and he thinks he's the last human on earth at this point. So Will Smith actually did a lot of research for that film, where he went off and interviewed people that spent their time in almost complete isolation. And the results that he got from that was all of them said the most important thing when you're in isolation is routine. That is what you need for healthy body, healthy mind. And you'll notice in that film, he's got a really rigid routine that he sticks to with a lot of exercise in it. So exercise is really a crucial part of that routine and building that in. You need routine and exercise for good brain function, quality sleep, boosted immunity, reducing your stress, and many more besides. And so just finding a routine that works for you and your family and building that in is really going to be useful. And another thing that's great at the minute is just wonderful to see there's loads of free resources coming out for fitness right now. So that's really nice. So just get on those and, find ones that works for you. I'm currently doing a 30-day yoga challenge on YouTube with Adrienne, totally free, really good for building in a routine when you're doing something like that regularly, so that's quite useful. And yoga I quite like because it's particularly good for stress as well. So something else that I think is important, this is the next thing I'm coming on to now, is just it's important to know what the signs of stress are in terms of the physical impact they might be having and what you can do about them. So liver and digestion are two things that are particularly affected by stress. And this can show as poor digestion, more sluggish digestion or bloating, things like that. Your sleep quality might be worse. You might be waking up more at night. It might be harder to get off to sleep. You might get some skin issues, spots, rashes, things like that, or headaches, or some weight gain. Those are all some of the more common symptoms that we might see when the stress is having a physical impact. And it is quite likely we are going to get stressed at some point during all this. We are, as humans, not really designed for isolation. We're quite social creatures. So it's important to keep that contact in with people. And also, if you are getting any of those symptoms, they're going to add some stress to an already stressful situation. So what can you do about them? And if you're feeling stressed, one of the best easy things you can do is deep breathing. That is really going to reduce the physical impact. That's it, deep breathing in and out. It's really going to reduce the physical impact that stress has in your system. That massages the upper abdomen when you're doing the really deep belly breathing into your belly as opposed to your chest. And when you're doing that, that massages the upper abdomen where a lot of that tension from stress builds up and starts to impact the digestion and things like that. And then the last thing I would say, just for helping with the stress from a physical point of view, would be lemon balm. It's also called Melissa, and skullcap. Those two herbs are amazing for reducing stress and anxiety. They actually boost your serotonin levels, and they're also good for relaxing you, helping you get off to sleep as well. Some people might find that's something that's impacted. Skullcap also boosts your melatonin at night, so deepening your sleep is really useful for this as well. So you can get those in a tincture or just add them to water, or you can also get lemon balm in a tea as well. So those would be my three tips altogether. Basically would be one, just boosting your immune system. Say garlic's probably the easiest way to do that. Building in some really good routine and exercise that works for you and your family is going to be crucial as well. And just being aware that stress can have a physical impact, and you want to just be taking steps to support your body to avoid that, so that you're not adding to any stress with that. So that would be.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you. I have such massive headaches these days, and I'm going to take all of your tips. Thank you. I should be feeling better by about 12:30. So thank you for that. So thank you to George and to Jo there. And now we're going to come on to Caroline. Caroline is the HR expert, and she's going to really help us understand what we need to do for our employees. Thank you, Caroline.
Lovely. Thank you, Julia. Good afternoon, everybody. The big thing at the moment is that the advice from the government is changing on a daily basis. It has calmed down since Friday, but if you got any HR advice last week, it is irrelevant. Forget it. Go and talk to whoever advises you now. So this is all advice for people who employ staff. If you use self-employed contractors, that is a different area of law. They're still consulting on what they're going to offer people. All we're talking about here are people you pay through PAYE, okay? So all the staff that you have, no matter how long they've been with you, qualify for furlough. You need to, whenever you're looking at any of these HR things and any statements that are out there on the internet, you need to look at the government website or HMRC. Do not believe even an accountancy one. The Institute of Chartered Accountants says on it, everybody who was employed at 28th of February. They've made that up. Okay, you have to go to the government websites, nobody else's websites. The government website says all staff are eligible. And because all staff are eligible, that means nobody should be firing anybody. Okay, everybody stays in their job. You do not want to be, and we're going to be talking about social media later, you don't want to be the only employer locally who fired people, because that will go viral on social media. Okay, this will be over and you will have such a bad reputation, you'll never be able to get staff or clients again. So if you fired people last week, because that was the advice last week, absolutely, is that you reinstate them and put them on what's called furlough. This is a new concept over here. It's never existed before. So to be honest, they're making up the rules as we go along. It's been 3.5 working days since they introduced that concept. There's almost no guidance on it. We don't know whether holidays continue to be accrued. We don't know about pensions. We don't know how much longer it's going to go on for. Some of the things we do know is that you can pay, or the government will refund you 80% of your employee's salary, up to a maximum of £2,500 per month. So you keep on paying them through payroll as usual, paying them a gross, not paying them, but processing it as £2,500 gross, and then you would take off the tax, NI, pension, all of that. You have to assume that you have to make the same deductions at the moment. It may change. We have no guidance on this. You have to do that. If you owe them a little bit of money, you can give it to them when the government's made a decision. But at the moment, the maximum anybody should be getting is £2,500. If you want to pay more, if you want to top it up to 100%, that's fine, but you have to do that for everybody. Otherwise, you will get a discrimination claim. Employment law still applies in its entirety. You can still be taken to tribunal. I know that seems a bit weird right now because we're dealing with all these other things, but you absolutely could have consequences 2, 3, 4 months down the line when you have to write a blank check to a disgruntled ex-employee. So the recommendation now is pay them 80% of their salary, capped at £2,500, and that can be until the end of May. They said it's 12 weeks, but that 12 weeks starts from the 1st of March, not from now. So if you put them on furlough now, which you can, then you would pay them 80% up to the end of May. What happens then, we will know hopefully by the beginning of May. Okay, nobody knows what's going on. I've had people ask me, so if I want to make them redundant in June, what do I do? Oh my God, we are on the 30th, not even at the end of March. Who knows what's going to happen by the end of May? We'll worry about that when we get there. If people were self-isolating, you should put them on furlough as well. That is not only fairer to them that they get more money, but you get that 80% back in its entirety from the government. So you are not out of pocket. If you keep them self-isolating on SSP, you have to pay for 10 weeks of SSP, which is £940 odd, and you won't get that back. So it's much better to put them on 80% straight away. And where I'm in the last 30 seconds now, I know I do have to do, I'm doing routine. I have to scoot off in a minute to do my routine daily client Zoom call, but I know I'll try and join later, and I know Julia has got some links for you to do afterwards if you've got any questions. Okay.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you. Absolutely brilliant. And I know that you'll be available for questions if anybody wants, so thank you for that. And I hope the client call goes well. I know that you're extremely, extremely busy with helping all these people, so thank you for being here. So next we have NICKI. Now, NICKI is absolute, oh, she's worth her weight in gold. There's no other way of saying it. She helps businesses in a really good, mindful way get paid for what they need to be paid for the work that's been done. And she also helps get robust terms and conditions in place. And that may, I'll leave this to NICKI, but maybe a little bit after the horse has bolted, obviously, in this situation. But NICKI is going to share some tips with us to help us get paid for the work that has been done and help us ensure that we get paid for the work that we are currently doing and do in the future. So thank you, NICKI.
Thank you, Julia. So hi, everybody. Nice to be talking to you all. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about 3 things. I'm going to talk to you about your terms. I'm then going to talk to you a bit about credit control. That's a horrible thing that we all don't like doing at all. And then a little bit about cash flow forecasting, because those are your 3 main tools for getting paid. Okay, and really, I'm talking about them in that order because that's the way they should be in the business, really. So, so we're going to start with your terms. Now, it may well be, as Julia has pointed out, some of this might be trying to close the gate after the horse has bolted, as it were. But really, everybody should really have a thorough look through their terms and conditions. If you've got written terms and conditions, make sure you fully understand what's in there, because I'm getting lots of calls from clients who are in, particularly in spaces like events, travel, that sort of thing, who are clearly being asked by the public to cancel the services that they've ordered. And so you really need to fully understand what your cancellation clause has said in to those particular clients. So it may well be that you have something in there that suggests that they would lose a deposit if they cancel, which under the current circumstances you might feel is a little bit harsh, but at the same time, if all of your clients come back to you wanting their deposits back, that could bankrupt you. That could have a serious impact on you. So some things to consider: if it is built into your terms that you will offer refunds, you will give refunds, or that you feel that you really ought to on things that have been cancelled because it's a situation that nobody has any control over. Think about asking those clients, instead of cancelling, if they can postpone. And that therefore allows you to keep hold of that money a little bit longer for the operation of your business. Or if they really are insisting on having the money back, is there any way that you can spread that over a number of smaller payments? So don't be frightened to do this. You've seen lots of posts on social media asking, particularly in the arts world, so music and drama, those sort of things, where people are getting refunds on tickets, where they've actually asked the public, actually spare a thought for all these freelancers who won't get paid if you don't, if these shows get cancelled, to spare a thought and maybe consider, if you can afford it, not to request the refund. So don't be frightened to have those conversations with your clients. If you don't have written terms and conditions, you'll need to be trawling through all those email exchanges that you had to see what you were actually agreed to. But there's every likelihood that the subject of cancellation never came up. And if you don't have anything at all, then it is very, very likely that you'll end up having to do what the courts, if you like, would say be socially acceptable or will be the norm. So really think very carefully about that. And for any future work that you do, make sure you have something in there very clear, because at the moment there are still some people out there buying, but I've come across one case already where order was placed on one day, work done the next day, and the third day when the client said, actually, I can't afford to pay you. So where you can, get the money up front and make sure you've given terms in advance of doing any work. So moving on to credit control. So my first thing is do it by phone. We as small business owners have a habit of hiding behind email. You need to do it by phone, but try and keep the emotion out of it. We're all, as George has highlighted and some other speakers, we're running on stress at the moment, and we're fearful of what's happening, and that will come across in our conversations if we're not careful, and could make those sort of calls confrontational. You absolutely have to talk to everybody that owes you money, because that money is important to your business. But in order for you to be able to do the cash flow forecasting, you need to know what the chances, the likelihood is of them actually being able to pay you at this time. And there will genuinely be people out there who can't. Okay, but having that knowledge will allow you to move on to doing the cash flow forecasting. So you want to establish how they're doing, in this current situation, and where they stand with being able to make your payment, so you can make decisions. Agree payment plans if necessary. It's much better for both of you if they can drip feed you little and often, because at the end of all of this, suddenly they're going to have lots and lots of creditors saying to them, I want your money. And that's going to be really difficult to handle as well. So little and often is probably better if they can manage that, and that will help again with your cash flow. And then moving on to that cash flow forecasting. So if you know and have got a good idea, and when those bits of money are coming in, if you've got those payment plans in place, it's time to do an audit on your expenses. So you need to categorize those commitments that you've got going out into essential, useful, and nice to have. And also look at all of those categories and say, are any of those things you're actually tied into? Are you tied into a 12-month mobile phone contract or that sort of thing? Any of those that you're tied into, can you ask for a payment holiday? Okay. And if you are unable to pay, please, please, please talk to your suppliers. Don't go silent on them. In the same way that you need that information to make decisions, they need that information too. And don't just stop and cancel your DDs. If you just cancel your DDs, the likelihood is they will try and take payment, and in doing so, it will show as a default on your part, and that will ruin your credit score. And when we all come out the other end of this, we're all going to want those healthy credit scores to help us continue to grow. So talk to your suppliers. If you can, if you need to ask any for payment holidays, that's fine. And again, look at drip feeding them if necessary. But if you have to start shedding any of your commitments and cancelling contracts, do the nice to haves first and work backwards so that you keep the essential stuff, and look at if you need to find any other source of income. So whether that's looking at what Tori's going to be talking about, I believe, that the assistance you can get from the government to help you meet the cost of those essentials and potentially usefuls, because the usefuls are the ones that are going to make sure you stay front and centre of mind, so that when we come out of it, you're the person that people think of first. So that's it really from me. So terms, credit control, cash flow forecasting. So yeah, get on those numbers.
Thank you, Nikki. Absolutely worth its weight in gold. Thank you so much for that. And moving on to Tori, who accountant specialising in helping small businesses. Again, somebody else who really knows the numbers and worth her weight in gold. So Tori, looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks so much, Julia. So I've got a few things to whiz through with you guys today. I'm going to try and give you as much information about the government help that's available to you right now. I'm going to start off with the money that's available to you that doesn't need to be repaid, ways to defer things that you owe but you don't have to pay right away, and then how to get money to help you through this period that will need to be repaid. So I've split them up into those three groups. The reason being, I'd like you to really focus on the first one first. If you can get money that doesn't have to be repaid at a later date, that's really where you want to be starting off with. And Nikki's absolutely spot on. Those cash flow forecasts are essential. It's really important we know how much money we need to get through this period before we start asking for cash to come into us, so that we know where we need to focus. So first up, money available to businesses. So you will probably have heard about these grants that are available. This is based on the small business rates relief. So if you have a premises, and it doesn't matter if you're a limited company, if you're a sole trader, in partnership, or any other type of business, if you are in premises and you would be eligible for small business rates relief, then you will be eligible for the £10,000 grant. Now, these grants are coming to you from your local authority, not from HMRC, not from central government. And so that's going to mean that we're going to all be relying on possibly different local authorities and slightly different rules depending on how they're going to administer this. A few people I've spoken to have already picked up the phone to talk to their local authority, and they are saying we don't have enough information yet. So you're going to have to be patient. And with lots of this stuff, I'm going to say, we don't know yet. We don't have the details. Just as Caroline was saying earlier, you need to go to the source of the data, ask for data from government websites or from the local authority, and don't rely on what you're hearing. I used to say from the man at the pub, but we don't go to the pub anymore. So what you're hearing on Facebook, I've heard this, my friend says that, really get back down to the experts who know the truth about this stuff. So let's start with that. Grants for small business rate relief. If you're in retail, leisure, or hospitality, there's a further grant available, which is £25,000 instead of the £10,000, again, based on if you're in a premises. So that, again, based on rate relief. So you shouldn't have to do anything extra to apply for these grants. They're going to be available to everybody that falls under rates relief. And we'll hear more from our local authorities about how to claim those at a later date. I'm hoping that we'll have something in place during next month. The understanding is that it won't go past the end of April, because we know that people are in real desperate straits for some of this money. The next bit of money that's available to you, Caroline's already covered this idea about furloughing, that the government's going to pay 80% of what was current wages, and you don't have to top up. So you could have the full cost of your furloughed staff covered by the government. Again, HMRC need to build a system in which to get that money to you. So we're again thinking hopefully by the end of April that'll be ready to go. But you need to be planning to be able to pay your staff who are furloughed from now until April. If you've got weekly payrolls, that could be another 4 or 5 payments to go out. So we're going to have to find a way of covering that cash flow until we get to the money coming back to you from HMRC. Other money available to you, SSP. So if you're paying statutory sick pay, and that's from the first day of somebody being sick if they are ill because of coronavirus, or they're self-isolating, that money is going to be repaid to you by the government as well. And if you're self-employed, well, who knows at the moment? I'm really sorry. I would have loved to have been able to come to you today to say, here's some information from the government. They are taking a little bit longer over it. It's a complicated situation. My understanding is that today, later today, we will have an announcement about what money is going to be available to you as a self-employed person. Until that happens, the answer for you guys is universal credit. So you go onto the government gateway, you log in, and you either look at the Entitled To website, which is a separate website that helps you know how much is available in benefits, or you go over onto the Universal Credit and you can go straight in and put your application in. I would advise to do that now anyway, just to see what benefits you may be able to have to help you with that cash flow forecast. So that's the money that's available to you directly. Next up, deferments. So what can you not pay that's due? Well, VAT straight away. So VAT is deferred until the 30th of June. If you've got a VAT quarter that's coming to be paid, so that would be due on the 7th of April, and you were expecting to make a payment, make sure that you've cancelled your direct debit now. You need to get on that today so that the money doesn't get taken. So we are still filing our VAT returns, but we're not paying them. And if that's going to be taken out of your account, you want to make sure that's cancelled. Also, if you do go and cancel your direct debit, put something in your diary to remind you to turn it back on, so that when we do have to start paying VAT again, you don't get done for not paying on time. So make sure you put that in your diary as well. If you are owed VAT back, you've got a VAT refund due to you, file your VAT return. That's still coming back to you in the same way that it would do normally. So VAT refunds are coming to you. You don't need to make a VAT payment. Along with other deferments, so there's no payment on account. So if you're putting in a personal tax return and you would normally make a payment on an account 31st of July, that doesn't need to be done. However, if you've got the cash in your bank and it's sitting there burning a hole in your pocket, which there are some people that might be the case for, pay your payment on account anyway, because it will interact with universal credit, and you don't get universal credit if you have more than 16 grand in a savings account between you and your family. So better off in HMRC's pocket so that you can get your universal credit if that matters. Last thing on deferments, time to pay agreements. So you can pick up the phone, talk to HMRC, ask for a time to pay agreement. They're being really, really helpful with these at the moment, if you can get through. I've heard of people being on the line for 3 hours. So pop them on to speaker, go and do everything else you need to do in your day-to-day, and then have a chat with the HMRC guys. I'm normally hearing first 2 months no payments at all, and then spread over 6 to 12 months for whatever you owe. But they're being very open to negotiation. So talk to HMRC, and that's one of my top tips today. Pick up the phone, talk to people. Just as Nikki was saying, it makes such a difference if you have a conversation. Last bits, I'm aware of time, Julia. Loans. So business interruption scheme that's been talked about a lot. It's become live this week. It's available via your high street lender. So there are 40 lenders, slightly over 40 lenders, who are able to give you these loans. I have a couple of warnings about them just at the moment. So I've had a few clients that have already gone through the system, asked for a loan. It's on the sort of standard basis of other lending. So you have to be able to put to them a good business case and a cash flow forecast. So back to what Nikki was saying, you need to do your cash flow forecast so you know how much money that you need, but also if you're going to borrow, you need to explain how that money is going to get used and then how you're going to pay it back in the end. So go to your bank with that kind of information. I'm hearing banks coming back saying, fine, we'll lend to you and we want a personal guarantee. Now, if you're in a limited company, the whole point of having a limited company is that it's limited. If you put a personal guarantee onto one of those loans, what you're saying is that the bank can come to you personally and take your home, before it goes back to the government to ask for its backing. So it really negates the whole point of this government-backed loan. Don't sign PGs. That's a really strong piece of advice from me on that one. You shouldn't have to do it. That's not why the government put this backing in place. There are banks out there who are profiteering on what's going on right now. Say no to the PGs. You don't have to go down that route with the business interruption scheme loans. There are other cash flow loans available. Again, be really wary of high interest rates. Don't sign up to something today to get yourself through a short period when, if you can hold on for a couple of weeks, there may be more help coming. That's it. You need to make a plan, guys. That's what I'm really going to push forward today. Make a plan. Use the money that's coming to you that doesn't need to be repaid first. Be aware of high interest rates and personal guarantees. And that's me done.
Thank you, Tori. Absolutely brilliant. Wow.
Sorry, lots of info.
How quickly we are all having to learn all these new things. And, you know, this is the absolute reason for bringing all you guys together, because it's just not possible for us all to become experts in these different fields with everything changing so much. Not that it would have been possible before. So thank you so much for that. Andy is our next panelist, and he's going to help us understand what we can do to make our hardware and our software robust and reliable, because we're all home working more and we need to protect ourselves. So thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Julia. Afternoon, everybody. I'm going to start on the theme of reducing the money we spend, and I'm probably going to finish on a theme of spending more, but for good reason. So technology can actually offer an alternative to most of the situations we used to experience in the real world. But it's very, very easy to end up spending way more than you need to. And not just that, but you end up with lots of IT bits that actually don't work very well together. Add to that GDPR and your obligations to keep data secure. And the last thing you want to be doing is spreading your business data and your customers' data far and wide. So be really cautious before you sort of spend any knee-jerk money on IT solutions to get through this difficult time. There are huge price differences between different solutions available. And it's way, way too easy to spend much more than you think. If we take video conferencing as a popular example these days, for some people, the free versions are absolutely fine. For others, and if you want to do webinars, you need to spend some money to do it. But think carefully before you listen to what everyone says. Oh, I use Zoom, or I use Teams or Powwow Now. Make sure that you speak to someone who can really just understand a little bit about what you want to do with it, because that's what will drive how much you need to spend. And as I said, for many people with one-to-one discussions with clients, you don't need to spend anything. The second point for me is a very emotive point, but the bad guys, the cyber criminals, love to take advantage of people when emotions are running high. And most of us have emotions running high at the moment. So for the bad guys, COVID-19 is like all of their Christmases have come at once. Now more than ever, you really need to keep not just your personal information, but your GDPR, your customer sensitive data and cybersecurity at the front of your mind in whatever it is you're doing. There are some basic steps. I'll happily publish them afterwards for everyone to see. But it's in short, it's about using password protection. It's about encrypting your hard drives. It's about recognizing that when you work from home, your home machine is probably not as secure as the machines you might be used to using at work or in a work environment. We know of lots of home devices running out-of-date operating systems and software. And one of the key things you can do is keep operating systems and software up to date and run reputable antivirus software. Even if you're a Mac user, no longer are Macs immune from cyber attack. You must be running antivirus. Again, even if it's a free one from AVG or Avast or whoever you use as a reputable antivirus provider, make sure it's running on your home machines. And there'll be some other hints and tips there in the pack that we hand out. Not all of us are going to be in the situation where we're frantically panicking at the moment. Some of us have some money, and some of us have a lot of time on our hands. And it's a really good time, if your business has dropped off a cliff, to think ahead and be prepared for when things do kick back into life. Because everyone else has said things will kick back into life, and we need to be ready to deal with them when they do. As a growing business, you learn to live with IT problems. But these IT problems just steal your time, they steal your sanity, and they stop you doing the business things that we all know we should be doing, the things that should be important to you. And you won't be wanting that kind of hassle again when business picks up. You want to have the ability to focus on rebuilding your sales and getting the bank account topped up again. So 3 things that I would recommend at this time. Firstly, keep the number of different systems or tools, IT tools that you use, to a minimum. Work out what it is you need to do as a business. Work out how IT can support you. But don't go buying a different tool for each thing, because you'll end up with a mishmash that doesn't work very well together. Start with the tools that support the most important parts of your business, and then look to fill the gaps around if there are any left. A good starting point is to choose a tool for managing your business administration. And for most people, that means Office 365 or G Suite. And then 1 or 2 tools to manage your customer activity. For example, a CRM and an email marketing tool. So if I was starting to map out the IT for a business, preparing for the next stage, that's the place I'd start. Sorry, Julia, I went 15 seconds over, but I'll stop there. You're still on mute. You're still on mute, Julia.
Yeah, I know. I was getting so excited, Andy, about CRMs and email delivery systems, but I lost my mouse. Thank you, Andy. Brilliant advice there. Absolutely brilliant. And it's my part now, which is so sort of going into panelist rather than host. So really supporting so much of what Andy has said in that. Thank you. Absolutely, really, really helpful. So from my perspective, for those of you who don't know me, I help businesses grow. And right now, that kind of means survive. And I do that by helping businesses make the most of what they've got. And that often is data and systems and productivity and processes. And I help businesses increase revenue by sending out targeted communication to their segment of data, okay? And I help them reduce costs by having repeatable processes in place. So what does that actually mean now? Well, it means that you need to know who your ideal client is. You need to know what pain they are experiencing right now, because the pain they're experiencing right now is different, quite possibly, to the pain that they were experiencing 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. If you're not meeting your client where they are now, and this is a phrase that Sarah Sangster used, and I just think it's so superb, so thank you, Sarah, for this. Meet your clients where they are now. If you don't, then you don't really have sort of much chance of getting in front of them. So the real point is that there are, for me, 3 different categories of businesses out there, and this is very broad, but there are the businesses who are now super busy. Pharmaceutical companies, HR, consultancies, people like NICKI, there are businesses out there right now, IT, that there are businesses that are super busy. So the pain they are experiencing is still a very real pain. They are not able to deliver as what they want to be able to deliver. They have a pain, and you may be able to support them with what you offer with that pain. Then there's a second group of businesses. They are businesses that are floundering. They don't know just what to do next. The way they used to do things is not how they need to do things now. The pain of their clients has changed. So what you need to understand what your clients are experiencing, and you need to understand what your clients' are experiencing, and try and offer a solution. There is money out there. People are still spending money, but people are spending money on necessities. So if it's at all possible, you need to change what you deliver to becoming a necessity for them, so that they will purchase from you. So the middle group of businesses that I'm referring to are people who are not quite sure where they're going, and they need some help with that to deliver, and maybe they need to rewrap what they deliver, and Amanda will be talking about this. Maybe they need to change the way that they deliver it, and Sarah will be talking about this. And then there's a third group of businesses that are really, really, really struggling. They're really up against it. They're probably predominantly customer facing, those types of businesses. And those types of businesses might be able to take the skills that they used to deliver their services and reapply them in some way. So maybe you can help them. So it's about thinking about your ideal client's pain and understanding it so that you're meeting them, and what you're delivering is something that is a necessity for them. Now, we may need to change direction, which is what this whole webinar is about. Having processes and systems in place actually give you the freedom to change direction. That sounds quite strange when you talk about a process, but the point is that the processes can be tweaked and adapted, okay? And the other reason for having good processes and systems in place right now is that if you are ill, or if your family is ill, then you need that business to carry on surviving and continue operating when you're taking some downtime. And the three systems that I absolutely love for businesses are a CRM, and I particularly like Capsule, working together with an accountancy package, cloud-based, and I particularly like Xero, and an email delivery system, MailChimp. If you've got those three systems working together, you've got like the holy grail or the holy trinity of systems. They're supporting you. You can tweak them, you can change the content, you can change who you're sending stuff to, but they are working for you. Think of the best practice. Again, to say what Andy said, this is an ideal time actually to be looking in on your business, and you're making it more robust, making the processes, doing the things that you didn't have time to do before, because we will come out the other end. Tori has this great phrase, look to the horizon. We will come out the other side of this, and we need to be ready so that people think of us when they're coming out of the starting gates. We need to come out of the starting gates first. We need things working for us. So the beauty of having a small business, or a medium-sized business, or a micro-sized business, is that we have the agility to change direction, the ability to move in a direction that we didn't think we'd be moving in a year or so ago, whatever. The third point for me is that data is key. We all kind of go a bit sort of glazed over, a bit bored by data. It's not. It's absolutely key to a business. One piece of data is a human being. That human being right now could be in pain, and you could help them. This is about helping people. So know your data, know what you've got, keep it tidy, keep it clean, enrich it, really make it work for you. Get your head into it, use your time wisely, do the things that you didn't have time to do before. So they're my tips. I probably overrun, which is embarrassing when I'm running the thing. But anyway, we are all in this together. So make the most of what you've got. Take a step back, deep breath, think about how you want to move it forward, and know your ideal client and the pain that they're experiencing. And I have written an ebook to help people work out who their ideal client is and the pains, and I'll be sharing that as well. So that's me. So this is okay. So now I have to hand over to Claire. So Claire is a creativity guru, and she helps people think outside the box, which is what we all need. So Claire, over to you.
Hi everybody, I'm Claire. Sorry, that was my son Luca who's in the background, so if he interrupts I apologise, but we are where we are. So I just want to say, wow, I mean, what an amazing amount of information so far. I've been scribbling notes down on absolutely everything that's been going through. So I guess following on from your piece, Julia, really, this is now starting to think about, okay, we've got our systems, our process, starting to think about, you know, our HR and the financial side, and just making sure we've got all our ducks in a row. Because I genuinely think that we, you know, going back to what George talked about at the beginning, you know, I'm just too sort of scared or tired or exhausted to think about anything else right now. I think you have to get those things in place. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop him humming. Luca, sorry, shh. Sorry. He's happy anyway. But now it's just sort of starting to think about, okay, next steps are, as you say, how are we going to respond to this challenge, this potential opportunity for our business? And if nothing else, how are we going to pivot to work to some of the new realities of our clients. I saw a note right at the beginning actually on the Q&A, and somebody said, which I thought was a really interesting insight, just thinking about, they're saying actually my clients, my customers are all in shock as well. And I think that's a really good thing to think about as well, when, you know, often when we're trying to be creative, we're sort of trying to position ourselves and sell something, as you say, they're all feeling this fear as well. So I think that's just something also to bear in mind. And I think, so what I've got for you is three things really. One is a brilliant tool for right now to help you be creative with either your team if they're working remotely, or if like me, I'm a limited company, but I have lots of associates, work by myself a lot. So that tool that I want to share with you is called usecandor.com, and it's the American spelling. As Julia said, we'll share this in the resources afterwards. So it's usecandor, which is CANDOR.com, and it's an absolutely brilliant tool. It's free. We're just talking about technology. This is a piece of technology, and in actual fact, it's pretty lo-fi. It's based on a website. There's also an app. You get a code, and it's basically a post-it brainstorming tool. But what I love about it is it allows people, I think one of the things we have to think about, which we think about if we think about traditional brainstorming in a room with a whole bunch of people, the extroverts are often the ones who, you know, hog the air time, because that's just what we love to do. And don't hate on us introverts, it's just how we are. But actually it doesn't really necessarily allow the introverts an opportunity to talk, or, you know, that they might want time to have a more internal process. So what I love about Use Candor is that it just invites absolutely everybody to get involved. So have a look. I've also written a blog on that, and as I say, it's free. So we'll send those around afterwards. I think the other thing, and I'm going to take some of my own medicine on this, is obviously we want our creativity to be focused. So I think there's two things that I wanted to pick up on. One is this idea of, that you might know, a term coined by Professor Clayton Christensen, the late, which is jobs to be done. And he talks about the fact that we, you know, what are the jobs to be done in terms of our ideal customer, as you were talking about, Julia, those avatars that you push us all to do so much, you know, who's my ideal customer? And what are the emotional and rational reasons why they would buy from us? Now, you might be thinking, where's the creativity in that piece? The creativity is then in using something. There's a great tool called an empathy map to map out what your ideal customer thinks, feels, and is doing and saying now. Now, again, I've written a blog on that. We'll share that afterwards. And there's a template. There's lots of free templates. But the key part to that is what's their pain point and what's their gain point. And I think, again, what's the new reality that they're dealing with, and how can you help them in this time? So that, I would say, you know, before you start thinking about using a brainstorming tool, you want to be focused about what it is that you want to do. But an empathy map is a really great way of doing that. I think I've got 1 minute left. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So the other thing I just thought was great from what I was listening to is something that's so easy, but is simple to think about where to focus your energies. Is a principle called Stop, Start and Continue, which has been made famous by Unilever. And as I was going through the notes, I tell you what NICKI said, well, what I need to start doing is having proper T's and C's, because I'm probably guilty of not doing that. Potentially stop being apologetic about asking for money and being paid. So actually, but it can apply to creativity as well. What's the biggest focus? And I think just my last 20 seconds, I think going back to something like using Candor, if you do have a bunch of suppliers or your team, is to, what have you noticed from remote working that you think is actually an unexpected upside or bonus from you working in a different way? Because I think so much of creativity, we get literally stuck in a rut. That's my alarm. Is that, you know, what a creativity is helping us to get out of one groove or rut and thinking and into another. But sometimes it just becomes, this is how we do things around here. So I do think the way that we were working, this remote working and having to work differently, is going to give us new and creative opportunities. So my last piece would be about noticing what you're noticing. What do you think you could stop to save you time, make you more productive? What could you start, or what should you start perhaps, and what can you continue? And then you could then brainstorm using Candor something around the way that when you all get back to your desks, it doesn't have to be how it was before, it can be better. So I hope that's helpful. I could talk to you obviously for weeks and weeks, but we'll put some resources up, and I'm going to run a free webinar next week, Julia, just to pick up on some of these things for everybody.
Thank you, Claire. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And next we have wonderful Amanda Downs, who is an absolute sales guru, and she works with big corporations and she also works with smaller business owners. So looking forward to hearing from your tips, Amanda.
Thank you very much, Julia. So I would just like everybody to take a massive deep breath. And if you have got shoes on, I would just like you to wriggle your toes around, because my 5 minutes is going to be all about putting yourself into your customer's shoes. If you've got any shoes on, kick them off and move them around so you can feel your feet. Thank you. Why do we need to put ourselves in our customers' shoes? Well, George started us off by saying there is fear around. We all are feeling fear, and our customers are absolutely in the same boat as us. So 5 minutes of thinking in your customer's shoes. I'm going to bring you 3 tips around what you might do to help your customers in a minute, and they are around finding them moments of comfort, finding them something to look forward to in the future, because this is, as Julia said, going to be over soon. And then also how you can help them to feel resourceful and powerful and feel like they actually are learning something from this experience, because we all are. Claire just said that as well. When we talk when we deliver our sales academies at Uspire, and when I work with SMEs at Sales Growth Expert, I use a really straightforward sales process, and it's connect, learn, match, and then complete. Connect, learn, match, and complete. My first tip then is, for goodness sakes, connect with your customers. Put yourself in their shoes and connect with them and empathize with them, as Claire's just said, and think about who they are, what they're doing exactly. Let them know you're there. Just let them know you are there, because actually they will be feeling as scared, as George said, as you are. How do you do that? Well, ideally call. If necessary, email. If you're going to call, try to video call. Catch them on FaceTime, whatever that might be. And I'm going to let Sarah talk about those ways of connecting in a minute. But be there for them. I think it was NICKI. Yeah, NICKI said that actually we need to make sure we're in contact with our customers to get them to pay us. Well, please do. Loyalty has never been so high. Everybody is feeling deeply for everybody else. So ask them to pay you. Maybe ask them to continue paying you, as some of the theatres have, and certainly ask them to start thinking about what they're going to do in the future that are going to pay, what they're going to pay you for. And then it's about asking. And I've got 3 big questions that I would love you to ask all your customers in whatever way you can. Number 1, what exactly is happening for you right now? Number 2, what exactly is happening for your customers right now? And what are the main problems that are happening for you and your customers? Those 3 questions, because then that allows us to think about what we can do that's different, or what we can continue to do. We work with quite a lot of business in the food industry, and I'll tell you what, they are flat out. So if you are delivering frozen peas or fish fingers or wine or anything like that, then they are absolutely flying. However, having been in touch with some of the CEOs of these businesses, they are experiencing some massive issues, one of which is all of their staff working from home unless they're in a factory, and the ones in a factory clearly are in danger. So they're in your customer's shoes. Think really hard about what exactly is happening for us. And then it brings me back to that match stage, and there are 3 things I wanted to talk through. When we talk about matching, we talk about, it sounds quite obvious, but match something that you might help with to what is exactly happening for your customer. Something that you help with that exactly matches to what their pain point, and obviously also their something that might please them, some opportunities. So moments of comfort. Excuse me. Kantar have released last week a document, an article called, in fact, I can't remember what it's called, but I've got it for you, on the resources. It gives 6 trends that happen with consumers, and they've taken it from artificial intelligence by watching people's Instagram accounts, which is fascinating. And all 6 of those are relevant to us as consumers, to our brands, and obviously to our customers right now. And the first one is bring moments of comfort. David Walliams announced yesterday that he's doing 11 o'clock story time. And 11 o'clock story time, I don't think it's 11 o'clock on my 11-year-old's timetable, but actually we're being asked to tell them stories. Now, wow, does that help me? Because they love David Walliams. I've got a client who Claire Cogan, Creating Calm, and Claire is offering 20-minute, £10 session with some oils that she's going to get delivered by post that are going to allow you to bring some calm. What an amazing moment of comfort that is. So what can you do to create moments of comfort? Actually, what Julia's doing now is exactly that for us. It helps us to feel like we're in the same boat together. Find people something to look forward to. This is an example again. We're also running webinars, future webinars for our customers. One of the other things we're doing is we've gone virtual with our sales academies so that people can feel like they've got something to look forward to and to structure a team. And there are small inputs that allow them to feel like they're moving forward in their business planning and so on. And then finally, how can you help customers to feel like they're really resourceful and they're learning something? Again, this is an example. And how can you go about doing that? Now, we know that lots of people are doing exercise videos and all sorts of things that are reaching out in the right way. And I'm going to leave Sarah to think a bit more, to talk to us a bit more about how you can connect with your customers virtually and through your social media. So 3 things. Actually, let me just reiterate the sales process. Connect with them, ask in their shoes, ask some questions in the learn stage, and then match what you can do for them. And think about moments of comfort, think about something to look forward to, and think about how you can make them feel that they are being resourceful and moving forward in this situation. There are 3 others which I'll leave you to look at in the Kantar article, but they are gold dust actually for everybody, whether you're B2C or B2B. We're running a webinar on Monday, which is called Leading Sales from Home. It's a free webinar. It's myself and my colleague, Mark Francis, and you are absolutely more than welcome to join us when we'll have some more ideas.
Thank you, Amanda. Absolutely brilliant. Love Mark too. So thank you for that. Really helpful tips. So thank you so much that we're all taking away from this. This is absolutely brilliant. And Sarah, absolute digital marketing guru, over to you to share some of your wisdom with us all.
Thank you. And a lot of what I'm going to say, you won't be surprised, has been covered already, because it's so important to get the IT right and the sales right and everything right. So what I'm going to try and do is put a little bit of context, actually, how to do that. And I've been doing lots of webinars, lots of live chats, talking to lots of people over the last couple of weeks. And one thing that I am continuing to say is that we don't need to rush into doing anything major with our businesses that is going to cause harm or is going to change the direction of what we're doing in a negative way. And what I'm trying to get to people, across to people, is that we need to flex into digital. We don't need to transform our businesses, because, as everybody said, we're going to come through this and we're going to come out the other side, and we don't want to sort of throw our businesses away because of a situation. So it is about flexing into digital, but what we can also learn is how to market using digital more effectively. And I've been speaking to lots of businesses that are actually saying, oh, I never thought about doing that, and oh, I've never really done that, and I've never really connected with people. So it is about doing the flex, but remembering actually what Claire was saying about actually what you're going to take from this going forward. So what you're going to stop doing, what you're going to start doing, and what you're going to continue doing. And you will learn a lot through this process. So the first thing I want to talk to you is about showing up. So lots of companies aren't saying anything at all. They don't know whether they're disappearing, whether they're closing. They really don't know. So show up, and the easiest way to do that right now is through social media, especially if you've got an existing community or you've got people that you can connect with, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Facebook. It doesn't matter at the moment where you are, but show up and just let them know that you're okay and you're there for them and you can help them. But be selective where you do that. Don't suddenly start a Twitter account or start going on TikTok if that's not where you would normally talk to your customers. Try and keep stable with what you're doing. So if you've got a corporate type style business, talk to them on LinkedIn. Get a LinkedIn group if you really want to go down that route, but stay where they live. Don't recreate platforms and hope that they're going to be there, because they probably won't be. Okay. Second is be helpful. So give them something that they can help them with. Just like Amanda was saying, you know, find out what their problems are and give them some small solutions, whether it's some free downloads, whether it is just a webinar. Give them something that's really helpful and use the free platforms. I'm going to go on to a minute into some tech as well, but you don't have to suddenly go buy everything. You can do this really, really cost effectively. And that's one thing about social, that all the platforms are free. So use the tech that is already there. Have conversations with people. If you're going to put some posts out on social, which you should all be doing, wait around for people to start engaging and answer all of them back. And if necessary, get them into personal DMs where you can start having a bit more of a personal conversation, because they do want, you know, don't post things and just run away. Actually use that as an opportunity to have conversations with people. This is the time to grow your audience. Everybody's stuck in their houses. They're all online. They're all using digital. If you're going to give stuff away for free, have it gated so you can start collecting information and start building your databases, and you can then engage with them on a personal level. You know, this is a really good opportunity. But I know some businesses that don't have a product, like pubs and clubs and, you know, leisure activities, they're actually taking the time to give out free content to help people while they're at home, knowing that they're going to be building their audiences. So when they're up and back running, they, you know, can email blast, they can give offers to all the people that supported them whilst they're closed. So it's really important to grow your audience whilst you're not there. In terms of platforms, as I say, use all the social platforms, but use things like Zoom, the free accounts that they're now extending. So use the free stuff that's available, really low cost things like MailChimp, as Julia said. You don't have to go and spend lots of money, but you pick the ones that are going to be best for you. So social media platforms, a web-based communication, whether that would be Zoom or Wellbeing is one of my favourites, and then using things like free download pages. If you're using MailChimp, obviously take advantage of the landing page software that they now have that with that software, and then you can do the email automations off the back of that. It doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be complicated, but just pick the ones that are going to be right for you. And my final point is don't overconsume. It's really easy right now to sit on Facebook all day and look at all the news and see what your competitors are doing and wind yourself up about it. Create first, consume second. Because if you're creating stuff that is really authentic and you're showing up as you, doing video, giving away content you know that's going to support people, meet them where they're at, grow your list, and you're pushing out content that is authentic for you and your business, then it doesn't matter what your competitors are doing. Don't be on Facebook saying, I'm not doing that, so I'm not doing this. Don't overconsume. Switch off and have as much non-tech time as possible, and you'll be able to come back out. But don't forget you have a business when this is all over. So authentically do what you need to do with your business. And that is me.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I love that. Absolutely love that. Create first and consume second. How powerful is that? Because it's so easy, isn't it, to get into something that Claire Bridges said the other day when I was on the phone to her. Production, I don't know, what was it? Production disability, production just freeze. It's just, you know, and I'm guilty of that as everybody else is. And it's just so brilliant. Create first, consume second. Absolutely love that. Thank you. So thank you so much. Brilliant tips there, Sarah. And I know that you're doing an awful lot for people and helping all sorts of people. So thank you for being here with us today. And the final panelist, before we go into some questions, is the fabulous Ollie Church. And Ollie is a former British officer who has fought in Afghanistan, and through his own personal journey of recovering mentally and physically and dealing with PTSD, is now an emotional coach and helps businesses with their mental fitness and resilience. And we're starting to talk about this coronavirus thing, aren't we, as a war against the virus. And quite frankly, without putting too fine a point on it, there are very few people that are in our universes that have actually fought a war, and Ollie is one of them. So, Ollie, over to you.
Thanks very much, Julia. So it's interesting, isn't it? So everybody will be running out their business continuity plans at the moment. So they'll be saying, okay, sort of go and work from home, and that's great. But I think one of the things that most organizations will miss off is the psychological impact of doing that and mitigating the risk around that. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I think the reality is a lot of us will have worked like this before, but nobody has lived like this before, have they? So considering that I'm the last one on, I knew that I was going to be pushed for time. So what I'm going to do is just share some slides with you, just so that nobody has to take too many notes, and we'll disseminate these afterwards so that people have got the information. Can you see that now, Julia? The slide's up. Okay, great. Good. So really, I want to follow on from what George and Joe were talking about. So we know that as well as fear, we're going to be feeling all these sorts of different emotions in us, different times. It'll come and go. And so the one that I pick up on there particularly is anxiety. So again, very normal reaction to these circumstances. But what we need to understand is when it goes from being normal anxiety to being actually a disorder. And that's really when it starts to get in the way of daily functioning. And that's when we should start to seek professional advice. And as George alluded to earlier, all these are common, but they're reversible. So we need to know that actually these are not going to last forever. That sense of permanence is something that we need to reject from day one. So what we might see in ourselves, in our teams, in our families is this dip in mental health, because many of our coping mechanisms and our protective factors that we rely on a regular basis just become far more difficult to maintain. So it comes back to this idea of structure and routine. So what I've got up here is the mental health continuum, and hopefully we all strive to stay in the green. So again, normal mood fluctuations, and we've got a huge host there of signs and symptoms that we can start to look out for. And it is quite normal actually to move from the green into the yellow. So again, just bouncing in and out of there is perfectly normal, especially now. What we need to look out for in ourselves and other people is that we're not staying in the yellow and that we're not transgressing onto the amber or the red. And I'll talk about later some resources that we can use. But essentially, that's about keeping an eye on ourselves, keeping an eye on each other. What are we behaving like? What are these thoughts we're having, so that we can start to seek professional help if we need to. So to come back to this point earlier about what can we do, I'm not going to give you a long list of healthy habits because they're going to be different for everyone. But what we need to know is that there's a huge impact of not being able to achieve these three most powerful needs as human beings. The first is this sense of control. So actually think about what you're going to do to establish control, whether that's a bit of just understanding what you can control and influence and what you can't, and making some decisive actions around that. The next one is this feeling of competence. We all need to feel capable and effective. So what are you going to do on a regular basis which helps you achieve that? And then finally, this one of relatedness. We need connection. We need support. So again, how are you going to factor that in a professional and a personal capacity? So what are the key stress risk areas? In a professional commercial setting, we know that demand, control, support, relationships, our role, and how change is communicated are all absolutely fundamental. And this, if we get these wrong, is where stress tends to show up. The thing we need to know now is that all these have changed, okay? So we just need to understand how we re-baseline these and how we move forwards together when we're working as a team. Because what we're really striving to achieve is this resilient mindset that in these different and difficult times, we can embrace challenge. we are willing to experience negative and positive emotion and understand that both will come. We can remain in the present moment, and we can maintain the self-confidence to continue. So we know that our mental health doesn't happen by chance. All sorts of things will influence it. Some make it worse, some make it better. And some of them we can control, but a lot of things are outside our control. So essentially, mental fitness and resilience is about balancing those risk and protection factors. And I'll come on to some resources very shortly where we can get more detail about that. But a sense of awareness and influence will help us keep on top of these things. So what do we do when we're leading a team? And again, this is not just work, this could be the family as well. We need to set the tone. We need to plan for the long term. We need to stop and think. Again, all the other speakers have mentioned this. We need to take the time now to get a sustainable approach sorted for the next few months. We need to think about what we're doing on a regular basis as a team and as a leader. And then finally, we need to involve the team in planning. So essentially establishing buy-in, whether that's the family or our team at work. And we need to make sure that actually we are focusing on the individuals rather than the task necessarily. We need to build that trust and make sure that psychological safety is there. People feel free to make mistakes and to learn from them. So finally, what I would suggest is a master habit, my key tip, talking about this mindfulness thing. I'm a big fan of mindful stoicism, the ability to stop, to breathe, to reflect on what the options are, and then choose. This is all about making sure that we can choose our responses rather than just reacting. And then I'll finally just bring to your attention a couple of really useful resources. First of all, the HSE put together a really good risk assessment. Again, work through that with your team. Don't assume that you know what they're going through. And then next of all, Mental Health First Aid England. They've got a really good line manager's resource, which will provide plenty of advice and information for you, for your team, and you also for your family. And it'll help us to understand how we can keep an eye on people. And it gives us a huge amount of understanding around mental health, which will help us to combat the fear and the lack of understanding, which quite often leads to inaction. So I know I've gone over time, Julia, but again, very keen to send these out to everybody who's attending.
Thank you, Ollie. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And loads to digest there, and having those slides will help us digest. It's important to process, isn't it? And this is a fantastic thing to do. We've got so much information that we all need to process, and that's, you know, one of the great advantages of having this software, that we can record it and send out the recordings so that we can all dip in and revisit the things that we haven't been able to process in time to sort of take on board. But I love that, and the element of being in control, that's for me so huge, is that so much right now is outside of our control. You know, I've got A levels. You know, I've got 3 boys. A levels are up the creek. GCSEs are up the creek. So that's 2 of mine. Another one having situations. He's a sound person, having situations, but he's being affected. My father's in hospital. There is so little that we're in control of, and so for me to be able to run this and to offer this to people was my being able to be a little bit in control of something. So thank you for that. That's absolutely brilliant. And the fact that, you know, the point about us being leaders at home is so key, isn't it? You know, we haven't been through this before, and our children are seeing how we're dealing with it, and it's, you know, we're setting an example, and we're leading them as well. So absolutely key. Thank you so much, Ollie. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you to all the panelists, and we now come on to a time where actually we have overrun, but we've just got a couple of questions that I think are quite key for some of the people on the call. As I said, we will be sending out a pack of resources as well. But a couple of questions that have come in, that came in before, was particularly from an event organizer. I think these, where people have a business where it's one to many, they're really suffering right now. And NICKI has been very, very has offered some really good advice about getting payment and deposits, etc., etc. But I also heard, it's actually really interesting, because I heard Sarah give some really great advice to an event organizer earlier in the week, some different ways of actually still engaging with large groups of people, even though it's virtually. And there were some fantastic tips. So I was wondering if you just wanted to quickly share some of those, about having some branded items that are that go out in the post so that people open them together, or a bit of exercise. You know, I had a book club last week that was virtual, and last night BBB did a music quiz, which was all virtual, and you wouldn't believe that you can have so much fun with other people whilst they're not in the room. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. So what were your tips, Sarah, about the event to help your event organise?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's about just, we're so used to things a certain way, is that we don't see a way of doing things differently. So my tip for the events, because I'm getting lots of event people, it's just about you still can have a room full of screens, so the presenter is still looking at all the people that are attending, and it's just making them feel comfortable in what they're doing. So things like Zoom, where you can have breakout rooms, so just like you would in a big auditorium, this is the auditorium, and then you're going to send people off into rooms of 10. You can still do that virtually, having lanyards, mugs, sending out lunch, exactly the same lunch to all the people that you would normally, so you're all eating together. You know, all of the stuff that you would normally do can still happen. You just are presenting and you are all in the room virtually, and you can still I've seen it done really well with coaching. So just work out what needs to happen face to face. So therefore you put the tech involved, and what you would normally do and how you're then going to support that through the process. But you can still do it using tech. You just need a little bit of a mindset change around how that's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah, for that. And I have another question that Ollie or George actually would be interested to hear your thoughts. The question is, how do you best deal with uncertainty? So there's two slightly different angles possibly there, but that's what we're all dealing with, isn't it? And that's, Ollie, do you want to just have and then we'll ask George his thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So it's really going back to sort of George's initial point that fear will trigger the negativity bias in us. So we are hardwired to see the worst case scenario in all things, and that's really so that we can plan for it. And so actually that's why we don't like uncertainty as humans. So understanding the difference between an optimist and a pessimist mindset can be really helpful. So when we are triggered by that negativity bias into a pessimistic mindset, we will think things are permanent. We will think things are pervasive. You know, they affect every single area of our life. We will think that we will take everything very personally, and we will believe that we can't control anything. So quite often just flipping that, understanding that things are typically temporary, things are quite often specific to areas of our life, although at the moment it seems like everything is absolutely engulfed. That actually, certainly none of us can take this personally, but that's how we are, again, triggered. So it's about, I think, detaching from it slightly, and then finally making sure that we understand that we can control things, that actually we have far more influence than we necessarily think. So again, using that master habit of stop, breathe, reflect, and choose can be really, really helpful. Stopping and thinking and going, actually, how much emotional significance do I want to attach to this? I've got a limited amount. What do I want to apply it to?
Excellent. Thank you, Ollie. And George?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's all really good stuff, actually. All I was going to add really was understanding that a big part of life is operating in uncertainty. The difference between now and I think the normal times is now we're really aware of how uncertain we are and how out of control we were. And I think, most of us, we live in a little bit of an illusion and a delusion that we're in control anyway, and we don't like that illusion being crumbling. So it's good for all of us to get used to living and existing within a degree of uncertainty. In business, in anything, when you're pushing yourself into the unknown, you're going to be into that place of uncertainty. And I think for me, I know it sounds a weird thing to say, degrees of uncertainty, because you think either certain or uncertain, but there's degrees of certainty. In other words, there's things you can be certain of, right? And for me, it's trying to tether your thinking, to ground your thinking into the things that you can be certain of, and maybe to go and get the information you need, like, to be certain that this thing will pass, right? I mean, the science is there, the statistics there, we know how it will pass, we will get through it. And some people, they find their certainty in those statistics and stuff, the real statistics, not the fear-mongering, panic, terror statistics. For other people, it's just looking inside themselves and saying, you know what, we came through everything else before, why wouldn't we come through this? So there's degrees of certainty, and I think what you can't have in certainty is always then going to be filled up with doubt, and that doubt can then turn into anxiety, worry, fear. So what we have to do is then start looking at what can we be certain of. There's a degree of stuff there. what can we believe in? So even if I don't have anything to say 100%, I can be certain, what can I believe in? And then what I can't believe in, what can I trust in? So even if you can't have 100% certainty right now that your business is going to be okay and everything else, if you can have a degree of certainty and then you can have a degree of belief, you know, you've got through everything else before, why wouldn't you get through this? And then what's left? Trust, right? Trust that you'll find the answers. Trust that, you know, it will be okay. And I know that sounds, you know, a passive thing, but actually trust is what fills all the little gaps that are left over with doubt. And that's when we can start to function at a higher level. So for me, yeah, it's that. As much certainty as you can, then belief, and then top that up with just bucket loads of trust.
Thank you, George. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we have overrun. We kind of expected and thought we might, but we've answered a couple of questions. Other questions we can take, so please do, if you're, as attendees, if you want to ask questions, I'll be sending out a resource pack. But I think it'd be really valuable if we just gave, if we just shared as panelists one key thing that we can take away that we've really sort of, you know, we've emotionally connected with us, that has helped us today. And Nikki, did you want to start your top left of my screen? So I thought I'd start with you.
Okay, pick on me first. Actually, for me, a lot of the stuff that's outside of my sphere of expertise, I really liked what Claire was saying about the creative, and I really liked Amanda's area about the different stages of engaging with your clients and putting yourself in their position and how are they feeling, connecting with them emotionally, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's where I've come from. So
thank you, Nikki. Thank you. And then Ollie is my top right. So Ollie, would you like to share the big takeaway from you for today? And
yeah, I really like the idea of an empathy map. I'd never come across that before, but it seems so obvious. It's about, I think, combining the emotional with the practical, isn't it? So yeah, I really like that. It's something I'll investigate further.
Yes, thank you. And Joe?
I think for me, just I think the big takeaway is you can manage this at home. And in that sense, what I was saying about health, you can manage your health at home, but just what everybody, the help is out there, and reach out, and everybody is available online. We're all still here. Everyone's still available to help. So you can manage this at home. So reach out when you need help. Believe that you're resourceful enough that you can get through this, and we'll all get through it together.
Thank you. And Sarah?
I absolutely loved Claire's point on the stop, start and continue. That's something that I'm going to make sure people think about, because it's super important. So thanks for that, Claire. And everybody's just been absolutely brilliant. So I've got so many notes. I'm going to need a couple of hours to digest it all. But thank you.
You're welcome. And Tori, what's your big takeaway?
Mine is Ollie's wonderful stop, breathe, reflect, choose. It's just such that's a great way of approaching all these kind of problems. And I'm hearing lots of people with quite a lot of anxious tension going on. And if we can just stop and breathe first, I think we're going to make much better decisions and keep our eyes on that horizon. You know, this is a temporary thing. It's going to finish, and we need to have businesses that continue afterwards. So keeping your eyes on the horizon.
Thank you, Tori. And Claire, what's your big takeaway?
Hi, was I think amazing as well. Oh, sorry, here comes the boy. He couldn't get. Oh, he's gone. I think for me, it's actually, I don't think we can really pick one thing, but I would say definitely perspectives. I think for me personally, all of you, how amazing to know, Julia, that all these people are in your network and they're all awesome, and I kind of feel less alone. So I think perspective and collaboration would be the two things for me. You know, just thinking about things. We're kind of creating a massive whole brain here. You know, there's bits of my brain that I have not tapped into that other people have really tapped into, and then just us all collaborating makes me feel a lot more positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And Amanda, what's your... Amanda? Oh. Sorry, Amanda.
Use candor.com, which I'm going to have a look at, because as we've moved all of our sessions virtual for the next few months, then something that allows people to do some brainstorming with a bit of interaction would be fantastic. Create first and consume second. Sarah, thank you for that, because I am consuming a lot. I'm on the 5 o'clock I've been on the 5 o'clock Boris train and all of that stuff. And actually, I would be far more productive creating. And then the other one is stop, breathe, reflect, and choose, so that you are not the deer that is bolting and everybody following after you, which is what George has said.
Excellent, thank you. I thought you were going to say consuming the 5 o'clock glass of wine, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay off that, actually, because my own final other learning so far this week is don't come out like a butterfly, not a slug out of this, out of your cocoon.
I like that. Andy, what's your take away from the...
I think for me, it's just a realization of how everyone is here and happy to help. And I'm definitely going to call all of my customers. I won't call you, but you can call me. And just ask them, is there anything that I can do to help you where you are right now?
Excellent. Thank you, Andy. And George?
For me, it was Tory, actually, because one of the things I've been talking about is, whilst we're under this fear place and panicking and everything else, we knee-jerk react. And we panic, and everything else. And what I liked about Tory was saying, do not, under any circumstances, sign a personal guarantee. I actually think that the loan thing is a viable option for many. It's crap debt, but it's a viable option. And I can see people getting there, spending 3 hours trying to get through to the bank, finally getting through to the bank, getting the papers, having the money, and in that panic state, just signing whatever's in front of them. And regretting it later, which I guess comes back to what Ollie was saying, which is that moment of stopping and breathing and pausing and thinking, is this really the right thing? So for me, it was that thing, like, if you see a personal guarantee, that's not what this was about from the government. Keep well away. So that was my one.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And I think I just want to say absolute heartfelt thanks. I feel really quite emotional. As you all know, I'm a fairly emotional person anyway, so I'm just going to try and keep it together. But this has been my focus for the last 10 days, and to have all of you together has just been phenomenal. I have learned so much. I am looking forward to watching the replay so I can actually pick up in more detail about what you've all said and process it. And my biggest takeaway is this whole concept, and I don't want it to turn into some, horrible hashtag, but actually it's a good hashtag, it's a good concept. It is stronger together. We are all experts in our own fields. Coming together, we've offered huge amounts of value. And to everybody that's watched and been part of this, thank you so much. And there are people behind the scenes, obviously Chris Proud, Annie Hall, and the BBB team. So thank you to everybody. But just my biggest takeaway really is, it's not a cliche. We are all stronger together. Let's support each other and let's keep these businesses going and let's keep ourselves sane whilst we're doing it. And lots of breathing. Thank you, everybody. I need to breathe more. On that note, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your days. Keep safe, wash your hands, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Bye.